Okay, so once again, thank you very much for joining today's National Apprenticeship Week event. And it's an apprentice showcase where we've got quite a variety of speakers. So we have people at different stages in their apprenticeship journey, but then also people who are managers of apprentices, and then somebody who is both managing apprentices and has done an apprenticeship themselves. So quite a nice mix of people to speak to us today. So just to say that we are recording, so this will be uploaded to our YouTube and our website, and you can access that at a later date. You can also share with your colleagues and show off what people have been doing either in your institutions or in other institutions. Please do use the chat box freely during people's sessions. It's probably best not to jump on kind of speaking while they are, but if you want to pop it in the chat box and we can come back to it at the end. And again, do ask questions and try to use this as a networking event as much as possible. In terms of follow up, if people do have anything to suggest for future sessions, then please do just drop me an email. Or if there's anything you want to showcase from your institutions, again, any projects you've been working on, just let us know. We're more than happy to facilitate that. So huge thank you to our speakers today. We've got Reno, Ben, Emma, Sim, and hopefully we'll be hearing from Josh, but potentially not, fingers crossed. So yeah, huge thank you for taking the time to speak today and kind of share a day in the life and things that have happened through your apprenticeship journey. So just for those who don't know, we do have a network called NTAM, which is the Network for Technical Apprenticeship Managers. It's a friendly network. People can kind of jump on and ask questions. And there's also some apprenticeship providers in there as well. So if you're not already joined, or if you know people that might not necessarily be in that group, then please do share it with them, because it's great to keep that growing. So I'm going to just give David a minute to introduce himself, just in case people have any questions during the session. Sorry, David, I'll but
All right.
pulling you into that. But yeah, David's one of our apprenticeship providers that we work quite closely with. So I'll just let David introduce himself, and then we'll get started on people's sessions.
Hi, thanks, Sav. So everybody or anybody in the call that doesn't know me, my name's David Diamond. I'm the Apprenticeship Engagement Manager at CSR Scientific Training. My remit within CSR is really business development and growing our apprenticeship provision. So we have some of our existing apprentices that are on the call today. I know we have sort of a manager and a mentor of an apprentice that we're going to hear from later, in Emma. It's a great week to celebrate apprenticeships, National Apprenticeship Week, and showcase the benefits for apprentices and also for businesses as well. And as Savannah says, you're going to hear from apprentices today at various stages throughout their career in technical fields. So hopefully you'll learn a little bit about what their roles involved, the skills that they're developing, and how an apprenticeship is really shaping their career. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from our apprentices, both current and former, and also looking forward to hearing from Emma as well.
Thanks, David. And yeah, these sessions are really good for people that potentially don't have technical apprentices at the moment, and it's something that they're looking to consider. And so it's kind of taken as granted that people do have people in these roles within their institutions, but actually it's quite surprising how many don't take on apprentices. So it's a great chance for people to kind of see that, and people that access the video afterwards can look at this as a bit of a resource for what you all get up to, and how that can benefit not only yourselves but the institution as well. So we're going to get started with Reno. So when you're ready, Reno, if you can share your slides, I'll let you know once it's shared, and we'll give you a minute to get that sorted.
Yeah.
Perfect. Caleb, Josh, no problem. We'll get you logged back in. This is the thing with using different platforms for people, isn't it? They don't always work for everybody.
You see this?
Perfect.
Yeah,
Yep, that's sharing perfectly. So thank you very much, Reno, and whenever you're ready.
no problem. Yeah. So good morning, everyone. My name is Reno. Currently doing a level 3 engineering apprenticeship as a workshop technician at the College of EPS, Engineering and Physical Sciences. Currently in my second year of a 4-year-long apprenticeship. So I'm doing my BTEC at the moment. I've completed my first year at Make UK, which is where I do my excuse me, which is where I do the large bulk of my apprenticeship. So they do the physical side. So I was working on the machines a lot for my first year. And then I do a further 2 years BTEC at the same facility, just in the classrooms. So I'm currently on my first year of my BTEC at the moment. This is the workshop. that I work in at the campus in the university. So it's me and four other guys in the workshop. So it's a mechanical workshop, and we design and manufacture components to support the EPS college or anyone else across the university who may need us. This includes staff, different colleges, schools, or the students, like PhD students come down and we do work for those. Um, so a lot of the times they'll come down and they'll have a design, or sometimes they don't, and we'll have a work with them to design the part or the component they need. Um, or other times we help design it from scratch, and then we then translate that over to the machines that I'll show you in a second, and we then produce the component for them. So the workshop itself is equipped with three-axis CNC machines, three-axis CNC machines, sorry, one five-axis CNC, one CNC lathe, water jet cutter, Trotec laser cutter, has three manual lathes, one manual milling machine, and then five desktop computers, which all are capable of CAD, computer-aided design. So this is just a few examples of work that the guys or I have done. So the top left one is just a when I first started to get me used to using the laser cut. It was just a personal project to help me get used to that. So it's got laser cutting out for the plaque, and then there's engraving we do as well. So that's just an example of that. And then the other three are components we've made that have gone into either a larger assembly or just as the bottom right one is like a smaller part that the student will then use as part of their projects, which will either maybe a component on its by itself or a component that then goes and becomes part of a larger assembly. So these are just a couple examples of a few projects that me and the guys have done. These are the machines that the those components will be used worked on with basically. So you've got the CNC lathe there on the left. You have the manual milling machine. This is a good image to use because as you see the head's quite tilted at an angle. Normally that's vertical straight on. And this is a good example of times you have to um, use different angles and different ways of machining. So with this one, you had to move the head completely, which normally you wouldn't. Just as you see the size of the bar. We do various sizes, small components, large components, and this is a great example of that. You got the image of the three-axis CNC there. That's just one of the three, and then the five-axis UMC on the far right. So these are just the various machines that we'll use to complete the components. And then here are the others. You got the laser cutter just there on the bottom left. You've got which I did the engraving and the laser cutting on on the previous image. Then you've got the water jet cutter, the flow water jet at the in the middle. That's great for large batch components. So a lot of small components that may be the same and don't really require um, the most accurate precision. You can put on the water jet and it'll get it done. It'll get hundreds done in hours. Some in minutes, depending on how complex and how big the parts are. And then you've got the manual lathe on the far right. I'll be doing a lot of work on the manual machines at the moment, as I'm still quite early. I'm still quite early in my apprenticeship, so a lot of the work I'll be doing is water jet, manual turning on the lathe, and manual milling, laser cutting as well. So yeah, to add on to that, it's just a bit of my role and day to day and what I do. So yes, I was a workshop technician, CAD. We were trained in CAD, computer aided design. We use packages such as SolidWorks or Fusion to produce 2D or 3D components, um, to then later help us translate into either a drawing through CAD or printout to help design the help manufacture the part. Sorry. Manual machining. So my day to day consists of me manually making these components from the computer aided designs. So whether this will be manual milling, turning on the lathes, whether this be the water jet, day to day, that's mainly what my role will consist of. So as I said here, water jet. So if I won't be machining, I'll be using that. A lot of work gets done on there, but well, not a lot of work, but depending on the scale, as I said, if there's a lot of small components that need doing, and the water jet's able to cut them, then we'll put it on the water jet as it takes away a lot of the time. And then general maintenance. So use of the workshop. Obviously, it gets gets very messy with the machines and the swarf of the metal coming off the parts. So just yeah, general maintenance of the workshop and the machines goes into the day-to-day working as well. So just making sure they're clean, wiping them down. Yeah, and that's pretty much my day-to-day role. So the bulk of it will be machining. A lot of times the students will come in, or whoever comes in with the job, they'll submit a job and they'll have the design ready. Sometimes it'll need tweaking, or a lot of times, and you have to go over the drawing or the design, and then go onto the CAD software and edit or help design that, and then you'll translate that over to the machines, and that's again what I'll be doing on a day-to-day basis. Will just be machining those components for the customer. So yeah, my future. So short term, I want to eventually learn CNC, so the automated machining rather than um, manual. So at the minute, like I said, the bulk of my work is manual. Still learning the basics and stuff, and getting to grips with the manual side of machining. But yeah, short term, eventually, I'd like to go on to CNCs, learn the 3 axis and eventually 5 axis. After completing the 4 years of my apprenticeship, hope to keep my place at university, work long full time as the workshop technician here with the guys. Um, After that, I would then hopefully like to look at potential other courses maybe that the university has to offer, such as welding, just other techniques and things I could learn that would help my job and add to the workshop. Also potentially management down the line too. So I do some courses on that, and which leads on to my long-term goal of hopefully going into management of the workshop. And yeah, running a team whilst also still keeping my hands-on role here and there, just to I'd still like to do some machining this is long term down the line, alongside management. And yeah, that's pretty much all. Thanks everyone for listening. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you very much, Reno, and yeah, really nice to kind of hear how you see yourself progressing in the role. I think that's yeah, really refreshing to actually see something that you can see yourself stepping into. So yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Jan really likes your football team that you etched. So congratulations on that one.
Thank you very
But
much.
yeah, no, thank you very much for sharing. How did you end up in the role? Or how did you end up deciding to get into this role?
Yeah, so it was through my brother actually. My brother is a engineer. He's a cylindrical grinder for a company in Birmingham. And before before I got this apprenticeship, I was in hospitality. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Um, and speaking to my brother really piqued my interest in the industry in the field. And purely through that conversation, I started looking at opportunities and ways to get into the apprenticeship. I mean, get into the industry, sorry. And apprenticeship seemed like the best way forward. Having no prior knowledge uh, through for education or through any sort of experience, I thought it was the perfect entry and perfect foot into the industry. So yeah, I started looking, and then I saw the university advertise for for the apprenticeship, and I originally wasn't aware that you could take an apprenticeship for engineering, or even for a lot of the jobs that you can do in the university. I wasn't aware you could do it. So yeah, it piqued my interest, and then I applied, and yeah, the rest is history, I guess. Yeah, and I got the job.
Well, I think that's quite a shared sentiment that people often don't know that
Yeah,
universities are employers in the way that they are until you kind of see a role, you go for it, and you think, oh, actually, you're
yeah,
not just
yeah.
studying here. There's good job, perfect. Thank you, Reno and Jan.
Yeah, it was just following up on that point, really. And I think engaging with, for us, to get engaging with the career services in schools, just to get that message across a little bit more. And I don't know, Reno, whether you felt at your school or college that you were at that they promoted apprenticeships full stop, because certainly my experience with my son, it was very much that traditional academic route, but whether things are changing a little bit now. But, I think we've got some work to do promoting apprenticeships at universities for sure as well.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think yeah, through my experience of school, they was apprenticeships wasn't promoted at all.
Mm.
Not even a percent. It was that traditional route of college university. So that, I feel if I was promoted or given the opportunity, the chance to at least explore apprenticeships whilst in high school, then it would have been a very different
Yeah.
outcome following high school. So I do think it definitely needs to be pushed and promoted more um to high
Perhaps
school.
you could go back to your school and give them a little talk about the route you took, and that might inspire some
Yeah,
new
yeah.
people.
I-
You
I'd,
never know.
I'd be open to that for sure. Yeah, I think it'd be
Brill.
good. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thanks, Jan and Reno. Emma?
Yeah, I wonder, I ask my apprentices this all the time, Reno, do you get a chance to reflect or do you reflect at all about how much you know now and
Mm,
how amazing it is that you know so much
mm.
just from having an apprenticeship?
Yeah. I'd say I should take the time more to reflect. I think it'll really put into perspective once completing it, maybe. Once I do the 4 years and I get these certificates and things. Well, for example, my first year when I completed my first year at the college at Make UK, I was given my certificates for the completing the first year, and that made me reflect and look back on how much I'd learned. So I think having that physical representation almost does help in seeing where you've come and how much you have learned. And so I do think that helps. And I think it'll be, like I said, it'll be put more into perspective maybe at the end. Not so much now, but um, at the end of the apprenticeship, I think seeing all the certificates, knowing I've completed it, and you know, sometimes the projects I do, like I said, that physical representation I do think helps, especially in my job because I am making a physical component every day at work. So sometimes you'll have a look at it at the end and you've spent weeks on something or days, however long it may be, even hours, and then you see that at the end completed. And you know, especially if it's a difficult job and it's a skill that you've just learned, maybe yeah, you can really appreciate how far you came and the skills you've learned physically seeing the representation of that. So yeah.
Perfect. Thanks both. And then we've actually got Reno's manager in, Anthony.
Yep.
So Anthony, I know you said your sound might not work or it might drop out, but do you want to just add anything from your perspective?
Yeah, going. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting that Jan mentioned about the schools. I mean, my background is molecular biology, and I did go out to talk to schools about apprenticeships. But that seems to have stopped. So I agree with Jan. Maybe that should be something that's resurfaced, um, to show schools basically what they can achieve if they start an apprenticeship scheme. I mean, Reno's brilliant. I'm not just saying that. I was really impressed with his talk.
Thank you.
But what we also do have is I have meetings with Reno, not just me and Reno, but with the two senior workshop technicians as well in the workshop, just to make sure that everything's running okay and to make sure that Reno's happy. It's not just a one-sided meeting, and he knows he can come to me if he's unhappy about anything, which fortunately he's not done yet. But we're also, I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to, whether it's going to be deleted in the recording, but we are looking at restructuring, which will allow a triangle shape to management. So let's see where this the leads in the workshop. I'm not a workshop expert. My background is molecular biology, but I've had to learn over the past 4 years about workshops and engineering. So, but he's done really well. So
Thank you.
well done.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks, Anthony. Wonderful. Well, if we've not got any more questions, then we will just move on to the next one. And huge thank you, Reno, for joining us today and for sharing that. Yeah, it looks really interesting and your work looks really cool.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks again, Reno, and thanks, Anthony, for jumping on.
No problem.
So if you can just stop sharing for us, Reno, and then we do have Ben up next. And Ben, when you're ready, if you've got slides to share, you can.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yep, can hear you fine.
Yep. Hello. Well, let me just full screen this. Yeah, so my name is Ben. Similarly to Reno, I work in the Department of Engineering at NTU. So just move on. So a bit about the department. There's multiple campuses of NTU, obviously. There's Mansfield, there's the city, and they also have engineering departments, but they sort of focus on different disciplines. So the city's more civil engineering, for example. And in 2017, NTU built the engineering department at Clifton, which focuses more on research and teaching and electronic engineering, mechanical engineering, biomedical, and sport. So it's sort of separated by a floor. I mainly focus on electrical and mechanical engineering, mainly mechanical slash manufacturing. And yeah, we've got a large range of advanced equipment to assist in teaching. So we have workshop as well with CNC machines, milling machines, a lathe, all of that sort of stuff, similar to Reno. And yeah, so I work in a team made up of 12 other technicians, split across different disciplines. We've got electrical technicians, we've got workshop, we've got biomedical and everything like that. So I'm down here obviously as an apprentice. But I sort of float about different disciplines, which is what I enjoy. So I get to learn bits of everything. But like I said, my main focus is mechanical and sort of being in the workshop, manufacturing things. But I do a lot of like soldering and electronic, well, help out in the electronics part as well. So as a technician, my job and our job is planning, preparing, presenting the labs. So it's organizing that all of the parts, for example, are ready. For example, with electronics lab, usually get like little boxes full of all the components you'll need. You'll have a lab sheet online, and it's about making sure that they're all present, keeping like an eye on stock levels, if you need to order in more things for the sessions, etc. Equipment management as well. So setting up new equipment that comes in. We're getting new things in all the time. I think we've just started an aerospace course for so the first year of doing it is the same as mechanical, but then you can branch off to aerospace. So we're getting a new equipment, and sometimes you have to modify the equipment to fit it within the space, etc. So that's another part of the job. Maintaining equipment, obviously, with having a lot of stuff, things go wrong. And call outs can be thousands of pounds to get a technician to come in from the company. So we'd always try and have a look at it first, if it's safe to do so, obviously. So, for example, a recent example of that is the shock blaster just wasn't working. Pretty much, it was just blowing air out instead of the media as well. So it was about trying to diagnose what's wrong with that and problem solve. As well as that, student support. So we assist with final year student projects throughout their course, as well as researchers like PhD students, etc. And this can be one-to-one or it can be a group project. And it also involves like student consolidation, talking through ideas with them. Sometimes they might bring you a project on CAD that they want manufacturing, and it's important to sit there and go through it and see, this is obviously, you can make this really nice on CAD, but is that realistically going to be able to be manufactured with all of the different things like fillets, etc., that you've got on there? It's not always possible to be made in-house. And other than that, just general department maintenance, so upkeep and organization of things like that. So a few projects I've been involved with, I just thought I'd overview. So on the left is one of my favorite ones I've done, which is recent. This is a four-stroke Honda engine that I've completely restored. So it came in, that's obviously with the case off and everything, destroyed, really rusty, absolutely filthy, running really poor as well. It did start, but it took ages. And actually, initially when it came in, it didn't start. So we had to diagnose the problem with that. Luckily, we started off with a spark plug, followed that down to the coil pack and everything. It did turn out to be along that line. And then we stripped it down completely, took the crankcase cover off, everything, and used the shock blaster. That's why I was using it, to sort of get rid of rust, get rid of the old paint. We resprayed it, we cleaned it, put it back together, and it did still start. Luckily, it would have been funny if we cleaned it all and then it still didn't start, or it was worse. But no, it did start. And we might be planning to strap it onto a go-kart, but that might be a bit down the line, just for a bit of fun. These three photos, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but these three photos in the middle was one of my major projects. I'll go into a little bit more in a second, on the lathe. And that's when I first learned how to cut a thread on the lathe, if you can see sort of the middle right photo. And the other ones are examples of some of the CAD projects I've done. So I use CAD a lot. I'm really confident with it. We haven't used Solid. We don't use SolidWorks here. We're mostly Fusion. So yeah, I've learned Fusion. I really enjoyed doing it. It's like a game. It's really fun. And obviously, before you manufacture things in person, you need to get it onto CAD so you can see how it's going to work, if all the tolerances are going to be correct, and you can simulate things and do joints, etc. on there, as well as doing drawings from that before you went onto the lathe. So there's an example of a CAD drawing there, which is this top right image just exploded out, and then with all the dimensions and everything, so you can have that in front of you while you manufacture it. But I'll go more in depth. So one of the projects I did was right at the start of my apprenticeship. So I've been doing it for a year and 6 months-ish now. I started in August 2023. And yeah, so this was one of the major projects that was sort of involving external parties. So we went to the neurosurgery department in the QMC because they had sort of a problem that's a pretty serious problem because it's obviously in real world application, this thing. So there was a group of final year students that came with to sort of see this. And basically, that head clamp you can see when you get in neurosurgery, they rest your head on the left side with the two pins, and then they screw that pin in. It's pretty grim, but it can go up to like 80 psi into your skull, and that is to keep your head in place, obviously. But one of the problems was the actual pins. Sometimes they would move very slightly. And the way it works is once your head's in position, they use retroreflective markers and they're sort of a capture system that's at the front of the bed like this. And that is used to see where your head's positioned on a monitor. But because that was all fixed based off the bed and the clamp, not the actual pins, what actually happened is, I think it was in Sheffield Hospital a few years ago, the pins moved very slightly and they didn't know, they had no way of knowing that the pins themselves had moved. So the pressure differences or whatever. And they actually ended up carrying out the surgery on a different part of the head, the brain, and it ended up killing them. So it's a pretty big problem that they can't detect whereabouts the pressure differences are and the problem. So that was the sort of the project for the students. It is still being carried on. I'd love to say, yeah, we fixed it. But like I said, it's a project, the third year group, and I think it's been carried over to masters, etc. So it's a big project. But my side as a technician, we went, and I don't know if you can see them little markers we put on the clamp. So we went to 3D scan it, basically to replicate the clamp and make it ourselves because they can cost about £7,000 to buy one in. And obviously they wanted to try like put sensors on it, etc., see if they can test different methods of solving the problem. So yeah, this took a few months to do. It was one of my first big projects. It's sort of where I learned most of my CAD skills, to be honest with you. Obviously, the more and more you do, the more you learn. But this was like sort of the big first one where I learned so many different techniques. So yeah, we used, like I said, CAD. We put that into drawings, manufactured the screw bit on the lathe. That was really difficult to get the right pitch on the thread and everything. We used 3D printers as well to manufacture the other side of the head clamp. And we wanted to be able to, so it's hard to see, but the inside of that screw, you might be able to see it in this CAD drawing. The inside of that screw is hollow. And then inside, we needed to manufacture another like cylindrical thing that goes in that can have a spring compressed against. So it almost replicates the fact that as you turn it, the PSI increases. So we ended up making that and we mounted it to some 20 by 20. And the rest of that image is so far, I took some bits off it, but that's sort of what the project students have been doing. So I'm assuming they're trying to replicate the bed, etc. But yeah, that was my main task at the start of last year where I learned a lot of stuff. I thought that was an interesting one to bring up. And yeah, thank you for listening and any questions.
Thank you very much, Ben. That was great and yeah, really, really interesting. And the schools, I saw a few people cringing at the
Yes.
at the depth that you're going into that school. But no, yeah,
Contextualize it.
yes, no, it worked. It worked, successful. But yeah, huge thanks again for sharing what you've been up to and kind of a day in your life. Yeah, I think it's really cool and mind blowing to me who sits at a desk all day that you can 3D print this kind of thing. I just would love to be able to wrap my head around it. But yeah, really, really cool projects you're working on. I'll open up to any questions from anybody. Jan?
It's not a question really, but it's a comment. I can really see how enthusiastic you are, Ben, and you're describing things as being fun. So you obviously really enjoy the work that you're doing, and that's just brilliant to see. So it was just a comment on that, really.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely true. I say to Emma all the time when we have meetings and everything, like I do just genuinely really enjoy coming to work, and I've never been that guy. This is what I always say. Like before starting my apprenticeship, I was like I hated school. I did sixth form for a year, so I did year 12, and I was like I hated it basically. It was not for me at all. So I ended up leaving that with pretty much no plan. Knowing at that point, I found out a bit more about apprenticeships. I knew like I need to learn practically because I can't do this academic route. And yeah, that's where I found it and everything.
Yeah, it's that hands-on sort of playing with things and seeing how things work. That's, definitely you can tell that's what you enjoy. So well done.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. Josh and Caleb, we'll see if your mic works. No, it doesn't. Okay. No worries. If you have a comment or question, you can pop it in the chat and we'll do that. And then a message in the chat from Sarah says, a great talk, Ben. You really are a fantastic role model of others thinking of apprenticeships.
Thank you very much.
Feedback there. Yeah, and it's really nice hearing people not entirely sure. I know Reno said the same, wasn't really sure what he was doing beforehand. And the same for yourself, Ben. And then finding this route that is not only kind of filling that role as a job, but also can bring you passion and interest, and you can actually engage in it day to day. I think that's really important. Yeah, perfect. And then we've got a question from Josh and Caleb that's come in. Obviously they can speak, but we can't hear them. They're having some mic issues. So the question is, how did you find out about the apprenticeship?
So yeah, like I said, when I left sixth form, I think I had found it just on the government website. So there was this one I was looking at, and there was also the potential to. This was like sort of not really going to happen, but my brother is a fire alarms engineer, so he was talking of maybe potentially getting me something going there. But I found this one, did some research and stuff on it. I like the idea of what's going on. Again, I didn't really have much knowledge on it, on the whole sort of how the universities work, the engineering department, everything like that. Came for the interview. Interview went really, really well. And yeah, like Reno said, the rest is history.
Lovely. And yeah, great sentiment from you both saying the rest is history. Nice to hear that. Reno, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just obviously because we're in the same field. I was just wondering how long your apprenticeship was and how long you've been doing it for, as opposed to mine, because it's quite a lengthy one over here. A lot of people do 2-year apprenticeships or a year apprenticeship.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it's the
Yes.
same.
Mine's 2 years, so mine's quite interesting. So my actual standards is like a laboratory technician, and
Okay.
that's 2-year course. And then on the side of that, I do a BTEC in applied science at the minute. But obviously, I work in the engineering department. So yeah, it's 2-year course.
Yeah.
Hopefully, my plans are to stay on and then do a HNC in engineering as well as a higher standard level.
Okay,
But yeah,
nice.
it's a 2-year contract.
Nice. And how long you got left?
6 months ish. Yeah.
Nice. Well, good luck on the rest of it.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. And I think that's all the questions that were in the chat. Emma said you smashed your interview, so that's good. It's always good feedback. Lovely. Right, if that's okay with you, then Ben, we'll get you to start sharing that. And I believe Emma's going to come and share a slightly unique experience. But yeah, huge thank you, Ben, for joining us today and for sharing that. And to Emma, when you're ready. Emma, you're on mute. It was sharing, but it was just sharing, not as presenting.
Is that okay now?
Yep, perfect.
Lovely. Well, what a great experience to be able to join this community today, celebrating apprentices in National Apprenticeships Week. My talk's a little bit different. So I'm not currently an apprentice, but I have been an apprentice. I am a person who absolutely passionately believes in the fantastically transformational effect of apprenticeships. And I can say that they've changed my life twice. So this talk is going to be a snapshot of how apprenticeships are part of my role. I work two roles, as my little thing says at the bottom. I'm 50-50, half technical specialist, leading a team of biosciences technicians in our teaching department, and half apprenticeship development officer for the School of Science and Technology. I'm also a qualified coach. So I'm really hoping that this talk inspires or informs. I'll be interested to hear what people think about it at the end. So a little bit about my guiding principles, and I think this is something that's really key about apprenticeships. My motto is, if I stay here, I can't grow. And if apprenticeships aren't about growth, then I don't know what they're about. And personally, I'm always asking myself, how can I create opportunities to grow myself and grow others? And that comes up so much in my work. So I feel like I'm really having an opportunity to grow and grow other people. It's not always been that way. In 2022, I'd sort of become quite disengaged in my job, lost a lot of passion. And so certain paths that my role took changed that. And I'm going to tell you about those in a moment. One thing what's happening at the time was that I didn't feel like I was aligned to my personal work values, which are growth, contribution, equality, curiosity, and meaningful work. A lot of my path had sort of taken away a lot of my energy around things. And so really in that regard, I say this, that apprenticeships really do have that life-changing and turnaround capacity about them. And so I'll explain a bit more about that in a moment. So I like to share this slide, and it's basically, how did I get here? So I failed my A-levels in 1993 and was kind of post A-level, not sure what I wanted to do. I'd always been a mediocre student, bright enough, but just didn't really apply myself. Kind of just did what kind of everybody else did, didn't really have any drive or sort of direction of my own. And quite randomly, I went to a careers advisor in my hometown and chatted with them, and they showed me the advertisement in the newspaper, so that's how long we're talking ago, for a trainee technician at the University of Nottingham. So that was for a trainee molecular biology technician, and I got the interview for that. I was terrible at interview, not like Ben was brilliant. And I was able to do a 2-year course and an HNC at the same time. So it wasn't an apprenticeship as such, but it had a lot of facets that were very apprenticeship-like. And I do often talk about it, that it was sort of like an apprenticeship. I was very lucky after that to then be retained by the university and went to work at the University of Nottingham in the clinical oncology department, so in cancer research, studying tumour blood vessels. I was also able to do my degree part-time at Nottingham Trent University, so I've really got my feet in both camps, and struggled as a learner, but managed to bag it ultimately. So I was quite fortunate. I then left the University of Nottingham to join Nottingham Trent University as a research officer. So I came to study an enzyme called transglutaminase in an established research group. I found that research really wasn't my bag. It doesn't suit me in many ways. Research can be quite uncertain, can be quite challenging in many ways. And then I was invited to join the teaching team and then became a technical specialist in 2004. This picture is my gran in the 1960s. I often wonder how it was I became interested in technical fields, and I like to think that it was in my blood in some way. So here's Pat at the Ministry of Defence in Chilwell, where she worked the computers, those massive big circles of tape in the old days. So I like to think that that's part of my sort of journey into being a technical colleague. So this is a key learning for me, made a lot of sense as to why I'd been that mediocre learner. I discovered that I'm autistic in 2017 and I was 42 at the time. So that means I'd had 42 years of my life wondering why I didn't fit, why I had that mediocrity, why I struggled to apply myself, and had a opportunity to sort of unlearn and relearn about myself and how it impacted every aspect of my life. And that includes being a colleague and a direct report at work. And so that's been a challenge. It's held me back in many ways, but also now is inspiration back for that growth that I was talking about earlier. So further on my career timeline, I continued as that technical specialist until 2022. So my career is quite long. And I was given the opportunity to become the Apprenticeship Development Officer in 2022, and that's a role I hold now. That's how I know Ben, because I hire and support apprentices as they work in various departments across the school. So Ben's in engineering, we have colleagues in biosciences, we've had colleagues in forensics, physics and chemistry, so it's quite broad. I also then took an opportunity to become an apprentice myself in 2023, and I did the apprenticeship in coaching. I am now in the coaching professional apprenticeship. And so here I am in 2025, wondering what's next. So part of my journey is also that I had that sort of loss of self-direction and understanding about myself. And so I had the opportunity to do the Aurora Advanced HE course in 2023, which covered subjects such as identity, impact and voice and adaptive leadership. It's group coaching and really sort of inspired me and gave me a taste for wanting to do more of coaching. I found it really personally transformational. And that identity piece really key for that feeling I had where I was kind of slightly lost. So it was really essential. So in my coaching apprenticeship, one of the key things and I say about it being life-changing is that when we did the icebreaker on our first session of the apprenticeship, everybody was asked what their hobbies are and what they did for fun. And I couldn't tell them. I felt like I was a completely blank page. I'd lost so much of my identity raising my two autistic children that in many ways I didn't know myself. And so was really like I say about this blank canvas for an apprenticeship changing my life. And so in coaching apprenticeships, I have learned how to, I've studied emotional intelligence, self-awareness, listening and questioning skills. I understand coaching models and understand the importance of reflective practice. And part of the Nottingham Trent University Coaching Academy, I now coach colleagues across the university, helping them manage issues of confidence, public speaking, goal setting, a variety of things to help people grow, basically. So as an apprenticeship development officer, I've had the opportunity to just be the person that I needed at the time, which was somebody who employs people who perhaps don't know what their direction is. As we said already, people who aren't necessarily happy on that academic path, but have so much to give. I'm also really keen to make sure that people who perhaps could be lost in the system. So for example, myself as a learner, I didn't understand why I couldn't engage with things, didn't know I was autistic, that you have still got those opportunities to work in places that will grow the infinite skills that you have. And so as an apprenticeship development officer, we've kind of worked to build the programme since 2022. I've learned that it's okay to fail, and as a result of being in this role and for coaching, I won an award. I won Apprentice Champion of the Year from Nottingham College last year. Just a fantastic moment, and that was because I use coaching to grow my apprentices, and I'm really keen on widening participation as well. So these things were seen as really key for being a champion of apprentices. What I consider to be the three magic ingredients for leading apprenticeships or being involved in apprenticeships in any way is having a learning mind and managing to keep yourself in the best learning mind you can, which is also to manage your stress and have good goals. I think that when you first start working in apprenticeships, it's difficult to know all the language, the territory, the whole landscape that apprenticeships are. When we first started delivering them, we didn't know everything about apprenticeships, and in many ways sort of let our apprentices down because we didn't know all the facts. So being in a learning mind and being able to adapt to what an apprenticeship is really key. You need time for that learning mind. I think it's really essential that people are given time to fully understand what an apprenticeship is, and that any colleague that works with an apprentice fully understands what apprenticeships commitments are, because I think they can be grossly underestimated. And I also say greatness is an ingredient here. And when I say greatness, I mean great learners, great providers, and great line managers. That's my own line manager who allows me to grow and develop really successfully, but also the fantastic line managers of our apprentices that are dotted across the school who've been excellent in supporting our apprentices so well. And that's how you achieve the gold. So in apprenticeships in the School of Science and Technology, have had these outcomes. We've employed 16 apprentices since 2016. 13 have completed the level 3 programme, 3 did not complete. 2 of them went on to do full-time education, and 1 of them left for personal reasons. We've got 4 currently on programme, that's 3 doing level 3 and 1 doing level 5. And 6 have now become permanently employed at Nottingham Trent University. So I consider that to be a real success story of the work that we've done as a school. And that's all I've got to say. Any questions?
Thanks, Emma. And yeah, thanks for joining us and for sharing that. I think it's really interesting to kind of see maybe the other side and apprenticeships that people maybe haven't considered. I do have a question for you in terms of how being in the role that you're in Nottingham Trent, did that make apprenticeships more attractive to you kind of later on in your career, or has it always been like in your remit?
No, God, I absolutely had no plans to do an apprenticeship whatsoever. And there was just one afternoon I was scooching through the standards on the iFate and came across this coaching professional. I just read the standard. I was like, oh my word, this is something I absolutely need to do. This is me. I was very lucky. I was supported really immediately by my line manager, and I pitched it to say that it would really help me support apprentices as well. It's made me a better leader. It's made me a better parent. I can't talk about the apprenticeship enough. It's fantastic. So no, I had no intention of doing an apprenticeship, and so it was quite by chance.
Lovely. Thank you. And if anyone has any questions, if you want to pop your hand up. I do have another one actually. So just in terms of you were talking about having the, I think, learning mindset, and that before maybe that was the university and its leaders were on board with that. It may have been that you let early apprentices down. Not you personally, but kind of the setup. Can you explain ways in that you think that was the case, just so that other managers might be able to see something in their own practice?
Yeah, definitely. I think that how it was set up was that, of course, the levy payments came in 2017, and I think the university was like, oh gosh, we must get apprentices to make sure we're making the most of our levy. And perhaps then the system was slightly less well planned than it could be. And the apprenticeship management was given to my line manager at the time, who had a massive remit already. And so then having to do apprenticeships on top of that, and it just absolutely, she couldn't give it all the time she needed it to. She wasn't able to draw in colleagues to support apprentices in really effective ways. It was the learning mind just wasn't there. Apprentices would come to us, we wouldn't have the first idea what a standard was, what a KSB was, and so it's making sure that you've got all that information in place. And I didn't do a course or learning on apprenticeships until I'd been doing it for about a year, and I did the heated recruiting and apprenticeship course. I can't remember what it's called, but I think it's been slightly reinvented recently. And really, that should have happened from the very beginning. And so it's making sure you've got all those building blocks there in the first place to get that pyramid of success, in my opinion. So that was one of the things that held us back. I feel like we didn't give our apprentices the best at the time. And so I am super passionate about making sure we do that now.
Yeah, it's almost as though the apprentice kind of leaders and the managers, they need to be the learner before they bring somebody on.
Exactly. You must know about it. You can't assume that you're just going to get a colleague on board and you're just going to train them. There is a whole language and culture around apprenticeships that I think you really do need to be fully aware of first.
Perfect. Thanks, Emma. And then David, you've got your hand up.
It's not so much a question, more of a comment. I deal with CSR have over 130 employers, and I deal with a lot of the leads that deal with the apprentices and the onboarding and the progress. And there's nobody that champions apprentices more out of everybody that I deal with than Emma Story. She's amazing. She's got your back, Ben, and your colleagues. You're very lucky to have her. So yeah, I just wanted to say that, Emma. I think you're brilliant. Well done.
That's fantastic feedback. Thank you, David. I'm glad you can see it. That's wonderful.
I do.
It might be that you get roped into some kind of best practice leaflet or something here, Emma, if you keep getting praised. Lovely, thanks for that, David. And then we've got a question from Josh and Caleb. What advice would you give to an apprentice starting out?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think know yourself actually is a really key start. I think an apprenticeship will stretch you in ways that you really don't expect. And I think if you don't know yourself in many, many ways, and this is where a coach can help you, I think you might struggle more than you might imagine. I think that sort of, it requires you to be really, really confident. It requires you to maximize opportunity. And if you're not quite that person, and of course, if you're fresh from school, you don't necessarily have those immediate skills either. It's something that I think you really need to take time to reflect. You know how I said to you, Reno, are you reflecting? Are you in any one moment going, I am so proud of this. I wouldn't have been able to do this a year ago. I'm so amazed with myself. That to me is really, really crucial. And I think knowing yourself and knowing when you're making progress is really, really key.
Lovely, thank you, Emma. Ben, you've raised your hand.
Yeah, it took me ages to figure out how. But I just wanted to add as well to David's thing. Like ever since I even met Emma at the interview, she was like so professional, so friendly and everything. And throughout my whole time, has always been there, like always asking what's going on. We always have really good catch-up meetings and everything. Because obviously we don't work in the same department, but we always have a nice catch-up. Everything's gone really, really smoothly for me. Obviously we transitioned provider and everything, and Emma was like super on it with letting me know what's going on and all that. And I also wanted to add, I know it wasn't to me the question, but if you had like advice to an apprentice, I would personally say just have like an open mind as well, because you don't always know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Not in a bad way, that could sound bad, but you don't know exactly what your job's going to be. So if you go into it with an open mind and just want to try and get better at stuff you do, you'll do well. And don't fall for any stupid banter like floppy hammers and stuff like that, and you'll be all right.
Yeah, tartan paint.
Thank you, Ben.
Bits
That was
like
lovely. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, and then thanks everyone. And then I think this has probably been covered in a few points, but Sarah's asked, well, she first said you're inspirational. Thank you for sharing. And it sounds like the coaching angle sounds really useful for any managers. And yeah, I agree
Can't
with
recommend
that.
it enough. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then what key things should managers of apprentices always keep in mind?
Again, I think you should be really sharp on the standard. I think you really should be sharp on the criteria. I think you should be sharp on EPA. I think you can't underestimate what is required of a line manager, actually, of an apprentice. And I think in many ways some people do. And that's partly my role, really, to make sure that people have a greater understanding of what it is that the line managers are getting into. I think that's so crucial. Or something I forgot to say, actually, one more thing I need to just add is that I came to the NTDC forum a few weeks ago and was telling a couple of other technicians about my journey. And one thing that I was able to say, and it came out of my mouth so randomly, was that doing an apprenticeship has made me feel taller. And the meaning behind that is so crucial especially in that growth analogy, that to me is how apprenticeships are. They're just so valuable. I can't say enough about them.
Yeah, I really like that. It makes you feel taller. I think that's a great comment. Perfect. Well, if there's no more questions, yeah, thank you very much for sharing, Emma. And it's great to kind of hear the importance, probably for the people who are contemplating taking on an apprentice, of having that clarity and understanding. Absolutely, it is something that's echoed throughout sessions and the heated course that you mentioned. And people utilize that for that reason, to be in the know and really knowledgeable, to give the apprentice the best experience that you can. Yeah, so thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Emma. So next up, we've got Sim. So when you're ready, Sim.
Hi, let me know if you can see my screen in a second.
No worries. I'm going to see, Josh, do you want to test your mic quickly while Sim shares? See if you're working.
Hello.
Yay!
Oh, thank God.
Success. There we go.
Okay.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah, that's sharing perfectly, Sim. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Sim. So hi everyone. I am at the University of Birmingham and I'm currently doing a level 3 apprenticeship as a lab technician. So I am based in the School of Physics and Astronomy. So there's a lot of research that's being carried out in physics and astronomy here, but I'm only really in the teaching labs. So um, sort of every year group has a teaching lab that they have their practicals, experiments and stuff in. So year 1, 2, and 3. So that's sort of where I'm based. So I'm doing an apprenticeship standard, which I'm sure we all are doing as well as a lab technician. And I'm also doing a BTech in applied science. So sorry, I have really cool effects because I find it fun because I don't do presentations often, so I got the chance. So just ignore the effects if you find them annoying. But anyway, so here is the lab. So this is the year 2 lab. So the left photo, actually both of them are in the year 2 lab. That's sort of where my office is based. But I sort of go regularly to year 1, which is downstairs in the same building, and then year 3, which is in a separate building. I don't know why it's in a separate building. They're loners. I don't know. But that's sort of where my manager is. So I'm going there quite often. He's calling me quite often to do like tasks and like help him out and stuff. So the way that the labs work, we have the first term until Christmas, which is a set experiment. So as you can see the left photo, I don't know how well you'll be able to see that actually. We have equipment laid out on the left benches going down and then the right benches going down. So each of those experiments, so the left one, they're all one experiment and then the right ones, they're all another experiment. So the other side of the room is the same, third and then fourth. So we lay experiments out for the first term until Christmas. So the students, they will come and then they do a set experiment every week. They have 2 lab sessions and then they will swap to the next bench for the following week. So they got through all of the experiments. So we also have several little smaller rooms out, which is the optics focused areas. And then after Christmas, we will have projects. So that's when all hell breaks loose, basically. So all the equipment that we have set out, it's put away, and the students then choose what projects that they want to do. So we don't really set anything out for that, but they will come to the technicians and ask for lots of little things, mainly, do you have a cardboard pipe anywhere? And sometimes just flat piece of cardboard that they can cut a circle out from. So, just lots of little weird things that that my senior technician has saved, because in physics, there's a big joke that they don't throw anything away. So it ends up coming in handy eventually. But anyway, so that's a project. So in projects, we have to order quite a lot of things. So the students, they will come to us saying that they need so-and-so, so-and-so. Like recently, my colleague, he ordered a tiny little fake Jenga set. And he was wondering if it would go through with the orders, that they might think it's just for fun. But it was for labs. So it did go through. We have it in the lab. But anyway, so the couple of things, sorry, it's a really fun effect. But anyway, so we have here an equipment on the left side. It's called the XRD. So that's the X-ray diffraction experiment. So you have a sample placed in the middle, and then the X-ray beams will go through that sample, and you have a computer where you run the scan, and it'll peek on the elements that are in there. So that I'm kind of doing right now the safety checks for that, so getting it ready for my EPA. But the students obviously use it for their experiment that they have like lab manuals for. So the safety checks I do, it's like a monthly thing. You have to check with a Geiger counter, like for all the leaks around, with the beams on, beam off, just to make sure that there's no leaks of radiation, basically. And then the middle photo you can see, so it's very physics, but this microscope is like a little bit like medical physics type of microscope. So there's a electron microscope there. So that you can see on the screen, there's a fly head. So you basically have a little piece of equipment next to this called the sputter coater. You'll place a sample in there that you make. So most common sample we use for reference is a lycopodium. So you put it in there, make the sample, and the sputter coater coats it with gold, which is what we're using right now. And that's just a better conductor for the electron microscope. So then when you put it in, you can then view it on the screen and take your images like I have under that. So there's some images there that you will then use for your experiments. So that's that. I'm also getting that ready for my EPA as well. So getting it set up and get going. This is a very old piece of technology and software, actually. So it does have a lot of issues sometimes. So my manager is constantly out here trying to fix things because it's having lots of issues. Anyway, so the top right photo you can see is a big dewar that has liquid nitrogen. So I don't have like I come in every day and I have the same task that I do. I don't have anything like that except liquid nitrogen. Every Monday morning is liquid nitrogen morning. So that's where I will go to the basement, fill the big the dewar, and that's going to the nuclear lab. So they have smaller dewars within the lab that they use for their experiments. So I have to then go fill those dewars. That's the only sort of regular task that I have. So as we are School of Physics and Astronomy, we have a telescope on the roof, although that telescope is mostly for the Astro Society. I don't know why, because I've never been able to use it, but either way, so the guy in that photo there, his name is Ken, and he is, believe it or not, in his 70s, long retired, and still coming in to just mess around with the telescope. And now he's very much trying to fix this big clock in the museum upstairs, which is like the only clock in the country that we have like that. I don't even understand fully. But anyway, so he's there just tinkering with it, trying to get something to work. So I put that in there because I was just sitting in the office and he just comes in and asks me for help. So I go to the roof with him and I'm just kicking a metal pipe, just trying to move the damn thing. That's literally happened many times because that's just what he'll ask. He just comes and asks for help. But yeah, so that's just a couple of the pieces of equipment that I use. Now, generally, physics is all electronics. Really, it is all electronics. I don't have much to do with the astronomy side because they do just mostly stick to their computers. It's all online, like software coding and stuff. So when I came in, I had no knowledge at all of anything to do with electronics. So my manager is constantly making little circuits for me to try out and build and learn. So on the left, the top left, that's something I've done myself. So that's using an Arduino board. So Arduino is like a little pre-programmed board thing that you can plug into the computer. You can add code to it and then program it to do what you want, basically a project. So I have the little LCD screen on the top left corner. That's a game that I programmed, and it's like a little stickman jump thing. No reason, just to learn how to do it and just to have a little game. So I did that. Lower left corner is just checking on the digital multimeters, like the values and the currents and stuff. So that's part of my EPA that I'm doing as well. Just I'm going to be showing a year one experiment. So that's part of that experiments where you're checking like a resistor and you're checking the current. You write it all down. You make a graph with the resistor with the voltage, all of that. The middle photo I've put is a little circuit that uses a 555 timer. So that timer is there for the flashing of the LEDs. As you can see, one is lit up since it's a photo, so it'll just have one lit up. So funnily enough, we were wondering why my LEDs were flashing randomly. They weren't flashing in order like it's supposed to. It's just because I didn't put them in order. That's the only reason. But who's going to go back and do that all? So moving on. So the photo on the right is just a bunch of the equipment that every lab has. So you've got your oscilloscope on the top. So that's something that every bench has in every lab, really. So that's where you'll plug in anything that you want to see the visual effects of. So you can have square waves, sharp tooth wave, and sine wave, which is the most common. Below that, we have the power supplies, and then just half cut out at the bottom is a function generator, which you can also then put into the scope just to check everything is working as it should. So that's a bunch of the equipment that I have. And I think that's it. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Sim. And yeah, I love the transitions. I think they're really fun.
Thank you. And that's the photo I took. We were talking about spring. I was very shocked to see that the cherry blossoms are blooming. So that was just last week, that photo.
Yeah, they are there. Spring is en route. It just keeps getting interrupted, is my theory.
Yeah.
Huge thank you for sharing that, Sim, and
Yeah,
really
no,
interesting to hear what you've been up to. I really like somebody coming back after retirement and tinkering, and I feel like that's a sight into a lot of technicians' futures. So you can all look forward to that. Not letting go of the tinkering.
Honestly, like I was very shocked because we had a retirement party event that the technicians sort of go and we have to it's a little thing, but in this building, in this university, there's a tradition that the technicians are the ones that arrange the events for the academics. So we have to put on the event. So there was a retirement event, and it's just funny because they retire and then they just come back and just keep working. What is the point of retiring? I don't understand. But yeah, so
coming back Monday morning after retirement. To kick some metal poles on the roof. Sounds about right.
Yeah, we were trying to move the thing. Yeah, it worked.
Yeah, it often does, I think, kicking something. Yeah. Emma, you've got your hand raised.
Yes. You've mentioned your EPA a few times. I'm wondering which part of the EPA do you think will challenge you the most?
So we haven't been delivered the EPA session just yet. So I don't quite know everything that we'll need, but for the observation, we've been working at it. And I feel like, because I heard from another friend who had hers last week, and she's really worked really hard for her interview side of things. So that got me a little stressed because I didn't think about it. And now I'm just a bit like, oh, what's going to happen with the interview? So I'm a little stressed, but that's just because we haven't had the session delivered yet. So when we have it, then I'll know more, hopefully.
Okay, that's good to know. Lots of preparation, definitely.
Lovely. Thanks, Emma. And if anyone has any more questions, if not, there's a few people who have had to drop off but have said huge thank you to all the speakers so far. So yeah, thanks again. Yeah, thank you very much, Sim, for sharing. Really interesting to hear what you've been up to, and particularly like the little game as a way of learning to actually create something that doesn't necessarily have a purpose. But yeah, huge thanks again for joining us. And then Josh, providing all goes well, do you want to share? And then I think your sound sounded perfectly clear from our end.
Yeah, definitely. I'll just let Carly put the presentation on the screen.
Yeah, no worries. And we did have a message in the chat as well saying looking forward to building the apprenticeship of employment at their institution. So that's nice to hear.
Can you see my screen okay?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joshua O'Brien. I'm a multi-skilled maintenance apprentice, and I'm on my final year at the University of Birmingham. So I'm based down in the estates maintenance building, and we provide basically a remedial kind of policy for any of the buildings in and around the university campus. There's a team that's based up in the accommodation, which is a complete different team, and they have a complete different road to ours. So we are kind of based down. You may see us. We're in the blue jumpers and the blue polos, but we are based in and around the university campus, which is 672 acres. So, and I'm working overall towards a level 3 EAL diploma in advanced manufacturing engineering. So I was at Make UK, which is a training provider in Witton, Aston. If anyone knows it, it's near the stadium of my beloved Aston Villa, if anyone knows it. But in my first, it's a 4-year course, and the first year I was there for full time, just kind of covering the basis of electrical and mechanical principles. So it could have been anything, working on like the test boards or kind of testing DC motors. It's really vast, but I'm glad we was there for the full first year because the electrical is it carries a lot of responsibility, especially working in the university, because it's quite open to the public. There's a lot of public spaces when you're kind of working on the exterior of buildings, you're working in controlled environments, in labs where sim works maybe. So yeah. Just a bit about my education and employment background. I finished my GCSEs gaining my maths, sciences and English. It wasn't compulsory for this role, but it was kind of, it's a given to really have, because it does aid you quite, when you're doing kind of interviews and everything. I started college as well as working a part-time job for an insurance company as an electrician's mate. So I kind of thought this is where I gained a lot of my ambition from, because I was doing this alongside doing my level 2 and level 3 at college, which was a 2-year. Well, the level 2 was the first year, and then I moved on to a different campus. It was at Dudley College. So the first year was based down at the Merry Hill in the Cat Centre, if anyone knows it. And then the second year was actually on the Dudley campus. And I feel that doing those 2 years alongside being an electrician's mate for an insurance company, fire and flood damage, did really aid me. And I still use some of the knowledge today and applying it into the workplace. And after cultivating all these skills, I applied for the university's role, falling back on having the strong basis in the trade. And I've kind of breezed past the interview because of the basis that I had. And I was a strong candidate. And I am on my final and 4th year. My contract ending in September, so I'm just basically in the business end of my apprenticeship now. I'm kind of finishing off the UPK knowledge questions and the job write-ups. You have to have a set amount of job write-ups wherein you have to meet a load of criteria, and it goes forward then to the training provider, and then they kind of they kind of mark that, and then they will put you forward for the EPA. So a typical day for a 4th year maintenance apprentice, it can really vary. The day starts at 7, where I'm paired with a colleague who has 20 years of experience in electrical reactive maintenance in estates, especially because some of the buildings are so old. It is very experience based. We had a VLS, voluntary leavers scheme, a couple of years ago, and they lost a lot of years experience. That's why they're having a big influx, on apprentices now, trying to train them up with the guys that actually have been here for quite a long time. And yet we have so many fleet vehicles, which, as I said before, 672 acres is quite a vast mass to cover. So we have the Selly Oak campus, which is quite a few miles, well, it's 1 or 2 miles away from the actual campus, and we still do kind of reactive and planned preventative maintenance over there. We have Samsung tablets as well, which have a plan on smart building management software on. These are where all the jobs are logged by our help desk team, and they would be put forward, and you get to choose which job and like the severity and how important they are. Our days can vary from being in lecture theatres, completing remedials, repairs, to being outside erecting barriers and utilising likes of cherry pickers. So again, being in environments where you kind of have to control and erect barriers, because you've got to keep in mind that you are kind of in and around the public, because it's a public space. So networking opportunities throughout the university. When I did start my apprenticeship in the first year, Kylie proposed that in every department, all the apprentices went to the Lake District. As you can see, we went to the top of the Old Man of Coniston, and we definitely picked the correct day for going up there, because we all looked drenched. But it was a really good experience, team building wise. We made some great relationships, building relationships in different departments, and we still kind of keep in touch to this day, through teams. And what have I gained from my apprenticeship so far? I feel like all the fundamentals needed to be competent in both trains, obviously from being at Make for full time for the first year and then on day release for the second year. I won't hesitate to contact any of my superiors, like my team leaders, my assistant team leaders, if I feel like I need to brush up on any skills, like my electrical or mechanical, say if I needed to do my 18th edition, I'd really, really push for that when I have done my EPA. And strengthening my communication skills is a really big one, as I can't see that. When I'm kind of speaking at my prior job, I didn't really get to speak to customers as much. Now I'm kind of speaking to lecturers, students, or members of the public, which has really aided me. And noticing it is really like giving me a bit of fulfillment, because it has come on leaps and bounds. So, and another thing, which is probably the most important, is to take every opportunity that is offered to me, even if it isn't applicable. Getting into the habit of saying yes. I was kind of someone who didn't really come out of my shell. Maybe a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have accepted to come and, speak to people on Zoom, but kind of getting into the habit of saying yes and kind of getting out of my comfort zone really has aided me, and it's kind of making me into the person that I am today. Ambitions and where I'd like to be come September when my contract ends. I would start a diary when I've made transition to my new role to ultimately keep track of what I do today. So the lads that are employed full time, that have been in here a couple of years, they do keep track of what they do day to day, because sometimes a superior could turn to them and say, "Oh, we need you here today. Are you going to be available?" And then challenging my line manager to push for training opportunities that may aid me or fellow colleagues and in any way beneficial. So coming on to the last slide, what I said about pushing for different training opportunities, if I think it's going to aid the department, I will try and, really, really push, even if it's not at Make UK, my former training provider, I still will try and push and try and look for somewhere close in Birmingham. And developing my skills and composing bills of requisitions to exterior companies, which assistant team leaders deal with. So maybe if I wanted to go for a more managerial role, I really wanted to push for that. The bills of requisitions are really important, because it's kind of contacting and composing emails with specific pieces of equipment that they would need to get from the outside and to bring in and stock in our stores. And more importantly, to end on, pushing for a role with more responsibility. So a managerial role would be great. I know a lot of people that stayed here, that have got the experience. It is a very experience-based department. Staying here for, maybe 5 or 10 years could really push you up in that pecking order for a managerial role. You've made it to the end, Few. Is there any questions? And thanks for listening.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you so much for sharing that. It's particularly nice to hear, I think, often about the kind of byproducts of doing an apprenticeship. So it's quite obvious the hard skills that you'll be gaining and that element of the role, but hearing about your communication skills and saying yes to things like today, I think that's really inspiring, really, to kind of the breadth of the impact of taking on an apprenticeship. So huge thank you for sharing. Emma, you've got your hand raised.
You mentioned the loss of institutional knowledge when a lot of your colleagues left due to the voluntary redundancy scheme. What sense of responsibility do you have as an apprentice then to fill those gaps in knowledge that exist now because of those losses?
So we would be kind of taken out with the select few lads that have maybe 10 or 15 years experience, and we would have a rundown basically on that. It would be a very, very detailed rundown on that specific piece of equipment or system. But we would be having, superiors watch over us while we are messing or maybe testing with the system.
Do you feel a sense of responsibility then because you're having to fill those gaps?
100%, yeah. Because as I said, working in controlled environments, we have to make sure that sense of responsibility is kind of concreted into our day to day. Because you're working on an emergency light system and you haven't properly, locked off and dissipated the system. People can receive direct and indirect shocks if you don't, barrier off or lock the plant rooms.
You've got a wonderfully ambitious attitude to what you're doing, and I can really tell you are grasping it with both hands. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that sometimes it could be that kind of sense of responsibility might overwhelm people, or it might be something that people think maybe they hadn't signed up to, so to speak. But it sounds like in terms of your future goals, that aligns with that because you're getting that experience, kind of whether or not you wanted it, you're taking that responsibility on, and that's
Yeah,
going to put you
definitely.
in a better position. Yeah, wonderful. Has anybody got any more questions for Josh or any more comments? No, I think we're all good then. Perfect. Right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for speaking today and for joining us. And I'm particularly aware of people maybe it not being something that they do day to day. With technical roles, that's often the case. Kind of speaking on Zoom isn't at all part of your day to day. So do appreciate that. And like you said, Josh, kind of taking that step to saying yes to these things is probably beneficial to yourselves, but also to the wider community of potential apprentices, existing apprentices, and people that might be considering getting someone like yourselves on board. So, yeah, huge thank you once again. And like I said, this will be shared widely for the network. So once it's uploaded, I'll get it sent across to people, and do feel free to share it with people who maybe you work with, or you can tell them not to watch it if you prefer. But people that might find some of the information and kind of stories and experiences today beneficial or useful for their own practice. So I'll just stop the recording now.